certain times of year, certain family events roll around, and within that space, we feel like there is excess, overconsumption. Maybe that is in things we're buying, food we're eating, just too much, too much, too much. That piece of it, the too much piece of it, the overconsumption part of the event or the time of year or whatever it's stemming from, is kind of like a contained thing, right? Yes, maybe it happens. Maybe other people do things, other people offer things, maybe you join in. But sometimes the overconsumption starts bothering us well before it is actually happening. Maybe weeks, maybe months before a situation is approaching where we know there's going to be overconsumption of things, gifts, foods, and we already don't like it. I don't like this time because it's just too much excess, the overconsumption of everything. And then we think about that, and then we don't want to participate, and now we're bothered, and now we're stressed out because we know we have to show up. We know we have to go to the family event. We know that there's certain things that are expected. We don't want to look like the grumpy one. So the suffering of overconsumption, the suffering starts happening way before it actually happens. Way before, right? It could happen all year round. It could happen all year round as we are anticipating something to happen. So it's nice to start thinking about that. There's two things going on. There's perhaps some overconsumption, but then there's the suffering in the thinking about it. And so a really great way to alleviate some of that anxiety, some of that stress around overconsumption, whether it's ourselves, we are overeating, we are overbuying, or whether it's people around us are overeating or overbuying, we can proactively decide that worrying about it is not worth our time. And sending love is worth our time. With law of attraction as the basis of everything I do, everything I talk about, as we change our energy, as we identify that, right now I am feeling a certain way. I am feeling like I don't like this. I am feeling anxious. I am anticipating something that I don't like. We realize that there's a story around this, and it's a choice, and we choose to think these thoughts because we've had so much truth in our lives that lead up to this being correct. But with law of attraction, the truth, the history, the data points just don't carry a lot of weight. Because if all of those truths, if all of those data points ignite a reaction that doesn't feel good, then all law of attraction says, well, if you are finding a reason to not feel good, you will attract more reasons to not feel good. And so it's a great idea to realize that, okay, if I indeed want to feel better, if I indeed want something to go down a little bit differently, I have to step out of this energy that is really worried about it or really doesn't like it. And I have to think about, well, what do I want instead? And maybe we want to feel better. Maybe we want others to do something differently. Maybe we want ourselves to do something differently. So it's a really great idea to start thinking about this. I did this last Thanksgiving when I wasn't excited about spending all day cooking foods I didn't like. And I found myself going down a path that I go down almost every year about the subject. And so I challenged myself, said, okay, the more I talk about this, the more I acknowledge that I don't like this, the more I'm not going to like this, and the more I'm going to feel stuck into that being the only way that this holiday can go down. And so I had to ask different questions. I had to make my brain think something differently. I had to make my body feel something differently in order to emanate an energy that could attract me something differently. And so I asked some family for advice. What do? I don't like this. and kind of be open. All right, how could this be better? How could this be better? And indeed, answers came to me. And then I ended up cooking dinner differently. I had the schedule of the day differently. And everybody ended up thinking it was really, really nice. And I really enjoyed myself. And so when overconsumption is stemming from a holiday or a family get together or any reason really, we can realize that there's something that that is going on that I don't like. So how can I define the opposite? Maybe it is about just stopping worrying about it, right? Maybe we just let ourselves off the hook. Maybe we look for reasons to allow overconsumption. If it is ourself, we can either set the intention and say, okay, how can I be healthier this season? How can I spend less this season? How can I focus in on buying things that I really want to or that are going to be really appreciated? And maybe we think about our family members. Maybe we want them to be different. Well, maybe a good way to change energy is to let them off the hook too. Maybe we can focus our attention to, this is what they do, to, that's what they do. I think they're enjoying themselves though, and I'm glad they're enjoying themselves. Giving everybody space to be on their own journey, giving everybody space to do what they like, giving everybody space to be themselves. And then reclaiming your space and reclaiming your ability to define what you want based off what you definitely know you don't want. So if we're bothered by overconsumption, then our first step is to realize that the overconsumption is a different thing than the being bothered by it. And so we can allow overconsumption to exist and at the same time change our reaction to it. Can we be okay with it? Can we just let ourselves off the hook on it? Can we let other people off the hook? Can we just change how we feel? Can we just not care? And then we can look at the thing itself and say, do I like this or not? And if I don't like it, what would I like to see differently? And how can I make that happen? And what kind of questions can I ask? And what kind of path can I go forwards on? And then we become attuned to how we're feeling. And then we stop tolerating not feeling good. That's a big part of this, is if some sort of blues hits you or you're always triggered by overconsumption, then there is an opportunity here for you to realize that I'm tolerating feeling not good. I'm tolerating this. I explain when I'm not going to feel good. I explain the circumstances, and then it happens, and then I tolerate it. But as soon as we stop tolerating, as soon as we see anxiety come up in us, as soon as we see ourselves judging and not liking something, if that immediately can be a red flag that we are not looking at what our inner being is looking at, we are not following what our loving heart is looking at. In the moment we are feeling an impulse of negativity, that is the universe's sign to us that we're looking at the wrong thing. We're explaining things the wrong way. We are not following our inner being's loving guidance. And how we know we are following our inner being's loving guidance is when we are feeling love and when we are feeling peace and good and satisfaction. And so in the moment of finding ourselves being bothered, even if the data points show that it makes sense, if we can just not tolerate it, have our red flags go up and require ourselves to look in any other direction other than the direction that doesn't feel good. It's a beautiful practice. So things you can practice saying that you can take with you are a few things. I'll suggest them. Choose what feels good. Leave behind what doesn't feel good. I'd like to allow myself to overconsume and not worry about it. I'd like to allow other people to overconsume and not worry about it. I'd like to redefine how I like to spend my time. I'd like to redefine my piece of things. I'd like to talk to people and find solutions. I'd like to find reasons to feel good about whatever I'm headed into. I'd like to find reasons to feel good. It would be a really great idea. It feels good to think about not caring about things that I don't like. It feels good to think about not wanting to give attention to things that make me feel bad. I would finally like to give myself permission to ignore things that don't feel good and look in the direction of things that do feel good. I'd like to give myself permission to write down the things I don't like with the pure intention to immediately brainstorm the opposite of those things, to define what I would like based on what I don't like. I'd like to breathe deep, let myself off the hook, let others off the hook, and realize that this can be practice time for me. This can be practice time. The overconsumption is not as bad as my reaction and my thoughts about it. So I can do a combination of changing how I think about it and also crafting a new relationship with it, meaning changing the circumstances, seeing if other people would like to. Sometimes we can't, and so our only option is to change how we're feeling about it, change the story we're saying about it, but there's always something we can do. Even if it just means taking a break, going for a walk, getting a coffee, getting a snack, and allowing ourselves to not think about it. Not give fuel to a fire that doesn't feel good. With law of attraction, this is always the answer. It's always the answer. And so if there's a piece in you that really wants to explain, but Aaliyah, you don't know the details, but Aaliyah, let me tell you. I could listen, and I'd take a deep breath and I'd give you a big hug and I'd say, as long as you're requiring telling that story, that will exist. There's just no scenario where we can't alter the way we think about things, to alter the way we feel about things, to then actually alter the way things show up. And when we take it upon ourselves to change how we're feeling about things, then things actually around us start to change. Either we start liking what's there, or literally what is there starts changing. Somebody else has an idea of how to change things. Other people kind of are on board and they're speaking up, or the circumstance just changes. So law of attraction isn't about changing our energy to just tolerate things we don't like. It's about changing our energy so things around us can actually change in a way that feels good. It is sustainable. So you have this power. Maybe this feels difficult. I'm not saying it's not difficult, but I'm saying you're doing it, and you're doing it right now. So give yourself some credit. You are doing it right now. You're doing it right now. Thank you for being here with me, and I hope you enjoy these videos.